Now, the settlement orders New York to pay the group over $230,000 in damages and legal fees, and that includes $47,000 in physical damages.
Meet Michael Taylor. He's the former vice president of public policy for Monsanto. That was until he became the deputy commissioner of foods at the FDA.
When we've got this definition of this Occupy Wall Street campaign as a domestic terrorism threat, do you think that is a correct definition?
And with that one, we're back again. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Salmark.
We're so happy to be with you here today because we're bringing you the big update on Occupy. Occupy Wall Street has not gone away.
It has not, but a lot of pundits have been saying, where's Occupy? But there's a lot they are doing.
Yeah, and there's a lot they're not reporting, and that's why we're here. We're bringing you the real news while the mainstream boys prove how lame they are. Let's start it off with this. We'll be right back.
Also in New York, the city is opening up its wallet and losing a legal battle with activist group Occupy Wall Street. Now, the charge is that the city violated the activist civil rights when it cleared the group's encampment at Zuccotti Park back in 2011. Now, the settlement orders New York to pay the group over $230,000 in damages and legal fees, and that includes $47,000 in physical damages, including an area known as the People's Library. Now, this is a 5,500-book collection that was taken down and largely destroyed when law enforcement raided that park. Now, the city initially denied destroying these books, charging that it was in fact Brookfield Properties who owns the park. However, the court did not agree. They stated defendants acknowledge and believe it's unfortunate that during the course of clearing Zuccotti Park on November 15, 2011, books were damaged so as to render them unusable, and additional books are unaccounted for. Now, for their part, members of the Occupy movement were pleased with the outcome, expressing more interest in the legal precedent set by the ruling than the money that was awarded itself. Now, Occupy Wall Street still has several other lawsuits pending against the city.
Okay, so that's from the coolness, yes?
That is super cool.
Well, it's really cool to see the New York City Police Department went in and acted like a bunch of Nazis.
I mean, yeah.
Totally.
The boot heel of authority on the throats of the free people. Of course, we're kicking them off as fast as we can. Did you see that? $130,000?
That is awesome.
That's a chunk of coin.
Yeah, and they don't really care about the money. It's the legal precedent that's more important.
Absolutely. And did you notice that they're more concerned about the ruling than necessarily the money coming in?
Yeah.
And setting a precedent.
I mean, okay, so precedents are being set right across the board, and we've got the rock and roll just for you because people are waking up everywhere. Activism is winning. What do you got?
Especially against Monsanto. You know, Congress just signed the Monsanto Protection Act, and of course they're talking about the revolving door between the FDA and Monsanto, and some activists has something to say about that as well.
You think? Okay, Occupy Monsanto right here with Radio Free Canada.
It's an age-old tale with lessons that extend to modern life. Today, the story of Stone Soup brought a group of protesters, activists, and food advocates together. But instead of hungry stomachs, these protesters are taking a bite into the issue of genetically modified foods by confronting the two entities they say are responsible for food secrecy, the Food and Drug Administration and the biotech giant Monsanto. So the story of Stone Soup goes like this. There was once a traveler who entered a village and he was hungry, but none of the villagers offered him anything to eat. So he goes into the middle of a city and he puts a pot in there and he adds a couple of stones. And the whole point is that people from around the village that were curious actually came in and added their own ingredients. They added mushrooms and cucumbers, lettuce, carrots, and potatoes. And soon enough, the entire community was surrounding one pot. So obviously this is a fairy tale, but the moral of the story is that the entire community actually came together to surround an issue and to make a stone soup like what you see here today. Another issue the group drew attention to today, the revolving door between the government and private sector. Meet Michael Taylor. He's the former vice president of public policy for Monsanto. That was until he became the deputy commissioner of foods at the FDA. And those close ties between the government and the biotech industry are something food activists can't stomach. Despite the fact that California's Proposition 37, which was the first public vote on GMO labeling, failed, despite the fact that the new federal budget includes the so-called Monsanto Protection Act, these protesters say the food labeling movement is just beginning.
we're really in the infant stages of a worldwide food movement that's been on the rebound.
In the end, these protesters say they can have their cake labeled and eat it too. Reporting in College Park, Maryland, Megan Lopez, RT.
The stone soup thing, yes. Communities gathered together.
Well, it is nice to be making people aware of the revolving door between the administration and corporations.
Right. Okay. And then we've got our Canadian government, Health Canada, falling in line with the FDA. No matter what the FDA says, it's cool.
But don't you find it interesting that the unity is built as people come around food?
Always.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're in Canada, you know, the best parties always end up in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
Okay? And, you know, that's an old chef's secret.
Oh,
though.
I totally agree with that, yeah.
But we got to take a look at your food. And remember, if you're eating Kellogg's, if you're going out and picking up Aunt Jemima, chances are you got GMOs.
There's more than just chances.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We're talking about statistics right now. Check it out, Monsanto. Occupy Food is one of the major movements that's going on out there right now. But the fight against Monsanto is going worldwide. Peru just banned Monsanto from the whole country.
Wow, that's awesome.
You know, high five for them.
But don't you know we have a science-based policy here in Canada?
A science-based policy.
You mean the one where they don't say anything?
That's the one.
Yeah, okay.
The scientists say nothing. That's our policy.
Yes.
I feel better already.
I do. You know what? In the dark, treated like a mushroom. Man, I'm a Canadian citizen.
Yeah, I love the sand.
We are independent media, and one of the things about independent media is we get labels.
Oh, that we do, and not all activism is getting labeled as terrorists.
I know.
Well,
So
yes.
I feel more empowered already. So let's talk about the label that we're all getting.
John Parker with the International Action Center is with me now live from Los Angeles. Let's get his comments on this. So, Mr. Parker, first of all, can you hear me, Mr. Parker?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, the question here would be, when we've got this definition of this Occupy Wall Street campaign as a domestic terrorism threat, do you think that is a correct definition?
The word terrorist has been used by the U.S. government the way the word communist used to be used. It's a way of trying to produce fear and trying to justify policies that really disregard the Constitution and try to limit as much as possible freedom of speech. I mean, it's a consistent policy of intimidation against anyone who protests injustice and follows a history of surveillance and criminalization against the black movement, from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X to the assassination of Fred Hampton, and it goes on. It's a consistent policy from the Bush's Patriot Act, which now we have the National Defense Authorization Act by Obama, and the Bush's Act was the predecessor was Clinton's terrorist bill, and all of these policies are meant to try to stop any kind of resistance against these austerity measures by the banks.
Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you very much. John Parker with the International Action Center with us there live from Los Angeles.
So you can see that obviously they're having an effect.
Well, I think the establishment is getting afraid of the growing social unrest that's occurring due to the rapacious nature of the banks.
That's the word.
Rapacious.
I know. I'm sitting in awe. Can that be the word of the day? Rapacious?
Rapacious.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
I don't know. I don't even know what that word means.
Rapacious. It means they're raping the economy.
Ah, okay. So we have rapacious people in power right now.
And tenable systems.
Hey, okay, so while we step up to bat and use our vocabularies, remember, if you're an activist, you're not a terrorist, and just because you're stepping outside of the box doesn't mean you've become a wacko nut bar.
That's right.
Okay, so we do not wear tinfoil hats, but we do talk about the truth.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, and the fact that we're not getting paid by major companies to talk about this makes a really big difference, apparently.
I know. I
just
remember.
want to point that out.
Advertising dollars.
We
Can't
didn't sell
talk
out.
about grocery store prices going up.
Oh,
Safeway
no,
buys too
no.
many ads. Let's run this and round it out.
Now, the self-proclaimed organization that is a bailout by the people for the people is Rolling Jubilee, and it raises money to wipe out people's medical debt who can't pay. With me to discuss this in RT's NY studio, debt liberator Ann Larson from Strike Debt Campaign. Hi there, Ann.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you. So Rolling Jubilee is buying up medical debt and forgiving it, I understand, even to the point of canceling out over $11 million in debt. Can you explain to me what you guys are doing over there?
Sure, absolutely. Well, Rolling Jubilee is a project of Strike Debt, and what we do is we purchase debt for pennies on the dollar, just like a debt collector would on the secondary market. But instead of collecting on that debt, we just erase it.
I see. So how many people exactly has the Strike Debt Campaign helped so far?
Well, our recent medical debt purchase, we bought $1 million portfolio of medical debt, all medical debt from the Midwest, Kentucky and Indiana. And so that $1 million of debt cost us about $21,000. So you can see that medical debt is sold very cheaply on the secondary market. And so instead of collecting on that debt, we just abolished it, and it was the medical debt for a little over 1,000 people. So those people will no longer have to pay that debt. So what we're doing is really helping people, number one, but the second thing is it's really a public education campaign. We're trying to let people know that this debt is for sale, that these banks, these lenders are profiting in human misery and sickness. So it's about helping people, but it's also about public education.
That was Ann Larson from Strike Debt Campaign. Thanks, Ann.
Thanks. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, so taking control of money.
Yeah, well, Strike Debt has erased that medical debt, and earlier they did it with student loan debt as well.
Yeah, I know. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, and guys are stepping up, adding coin to this to get people out of this medical debt thing.
And the thing is, they can buy the debt from the debtors, I guess, or the debt owners, for pennies on the dollar, the kind of, like they sell it off to a debt collector.
Yeah, I know.
And just no harassing phone calls, just, hello, your debt's been canceled.
Now, could you imagine the game changer that is for people?
Yes.
They get their health and they got out of debt.
Yeah. So all of a sudden you've got the stress released from you. I talk to the medical industry quite a bit, a lot of doctors and nurses. Stress about money while you're sick.
Yeah, it doesn't help your recovery very well, does it?
At all. It puts off your recovery time because you can't relax and you can't just simply let things go.
Well,
right?
What's interesting is the states have a for-profit medical program.
I know. And they say, oh, well, you're leaving people to die in the streets, but it helps the economy.
Yes, well, every time those GDP numbers go up, that means more people are hurting.
And right now, we've got the Harper conservatives that are tying our health care to our budget. Coming up in 2015, they proposed legislation that said if our GDP goes up, you get more health care.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
I mean, we're following this story, but it's amazing. Remember, 25% of our GDP is legal fees. So if we get sued more, we get more health care.
Well, with the TPP, we probably will get sued more.
Sorry to put those 2 points together for you. Stop speaking logic.
Oh, no, we can't have that.
We're on the radio.
Quiet. People are listening. They might wake up. As we continue to wake up, we are going to run some more clips and put some things together about the way they're occupying foreclosures, which is pretty interesting stuff. But please don't take our word for it. Make sure you get informed and check our facts out. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Stallmark.
You're tuned in to Radio Free Canada. Coming up next, what are we doing, brother?
We're going to be talking about the clean energy, nuclear.
Yes. How's that working out for you, Fukushima? We're here for you.
Are you sharing
tuned.
the love?
We'll be back. Canada used to have what is called a social safety net. That net used to consist of welfare and UI checks, and it ensured that people would not have to steal to live. But now there are no effective social safety nets left, except for the richest of the rich. How does it work? Well, it's pretty simple. Major corporations are awarded subsidies, tax breaks, and eased regulations, and you are not. Not convinced? Just remember that you pay 65% of your wages in taxes, and Canadian banks, corporations, pay no taxes at all. But things are changing. From Egypt to Toronto, from Victoria to Halifax, people are winning battles by standing up for what is right. People like me and you. On January 28th, we are asking you to go to your city hall at 12 noon all across the country. Spread this video around and stand up against corporate welfare. and get our safe streets back in an effective way.